Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fire Nation, and thank you for coming to watch another video here on the channel. And today, we're going to hear me yap about my time in the TCG for the last month and some change, and how it's changed how I view Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game, and specifically Master Duel as a whole. So, I think before I get anywhere, I have to say that the TCG for me has been the biggest breath of fresh air since I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! With the release of Master Duel about 3 years ago. Outside of some of the obvious things, there's some things that I've seen here in my experience dueling so far that I think are, one, a lot of fun, and two, the way that the TCG has kind of been presented to me, it almost just seems like a gigantic ranked session at all times, which I guess, if we're going to be honest, is what Master Duel is most of the time. Just one giant ranked session that never ends. But I think if I'm going to start anywhere to talk about what I've liked about TCG, I think I want to start with the easiest thing to talk about, and that's the ban list. So the ban list is probably maybe one of the best, not best, but one of the strongest reasons I've had to want to play in the TCG. And one of the biggest reasons has been Maxi is nowhere to be found. The bug is gone. Ding dong, the bug is dead. Now have a bagel. But seriously, Maxi not being a thing in the TCG was really one of the only things I wanted. We don't need to make this a Maxi rant video. I despise that card just about as much as anybody else. I think it's one of the, not the dumbest, but definitely probably you can say one of the weirdest cards as far as its history, as when it was released, it wasn't really all that good, so I've heard and researched. And then in our modern form of Yu-Gi-Oh!, it is just, especially Master Duel, it's everywhere. It's ridiculous. It's every game. Now, to Master Duel's credit, I do feel that ever since it got semi-limited, I don't see it as much, personally. I don't know about other duelist experiences, but I know that for me, that ever since Maxi went to 2, it does feel like the impact of Maxi has gone down. I think I would go as far as to say it's just about in a dramatic way. But really, Maxi not being there was one of the first things I had ever said, that if I could just play a format where Maxi wasn't there, I feel that Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be a lot more fun. And lo and behold, I have been having a lot of fun because I don't have to think about that card. On top of that, I don't have to think about Apollo, Baron, Savage Dragon. To be honest, Savage Dragon to me has never, at least Master Duel, never seemed that much of a problem. But I could be lacking some TCG knowledge here on why, outside of the Omni Negate, why Savage may have been a problem in of himself. But the main through line of all those cards is the big bads of Omni Negates, and none of those cards are in TCG, and it's so wonderful to not have to think about. I mean, you still obviously have to think about, your negates and omni negates, but the most generic of the generics are not here. And honestly, it really is a breath of fresh air. I truly enjoy that. In the past few years, when I have been listening to other content creators and how they talk about the TCG, one thing that I always walked away with really enjoying was the philosophy that the TCG was getting rid of generic negates, especially when they became too strong. Personally, I think I remember when Apollo, Baron, and I don't know, I think Savage might have been on that same list if he wasn't on another one not too long after. But I remember just seeing that ban list, and I was just genuinely shocked. Like, to think that Baron, which to me, as a Master Duel player for 3 years, like Baron is everywhere. She's everywhere. The big bad lady boss of 3K monsters, and you better respect it, all right? Blue Eyes White Dragon. Sit down, because you and Baron will be taking each other out. But to really think that there was a format where some cards that I had found annoying, maybe not necessarily wanted banned, but just found so annoying, were gone. is such a relief as just far as a game, because I don't have to consider those cards. Now, of course, for things that you do gain, you lose. So while I do gain a format where Baron, Apollo, and some other generic Omni negates aren't there, I do have to be worried a little more about in-house archetypes. And I would say to a degree, not actually to a degree, this is actually a fact, I would say, way more cards, because Master Duel isn't caught up with the TCG. But we'll get to that point a little bit. Um, I would say also that in comparison to Master Duel, while while those other cards still are legal, I would say because of how Master Duel works as a best of one, some of these cards outside of Apollo right now, I haven't seen too much, and I want to say definitely the last 6-ish months. Um, in my case, I know that once Fiendsmith got released, and I've been saying this for a while, the game just became Turbo Apollo, which I did not find as that much fun. Um, I think I've only used Apollo personally myself one time in one deck. Well, I didn't summon the card once, but only used Apollo in one deck that I've played in the 3 years I've played Master Duel, and that has been Ubel. This is Ubel before Fiendsmith came into the game, and even though, oh, and you'll see all the takes. You can just imperm it, you can kaiju it, you can super poly it, and da 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 da. That's never been the issue why I found Apollo annoying. Apollo is, yes, the generic negate is annoying, but what's more annoying is that generic negate is going to be behind a very strong board, where a smart player is probably only sparingly using Apollo or not using Apollo at all until all their interruption is gone. Um, but the fact that these cards just aren't here, I don't have to think about them, consider them. It is, I would say, almost like a weight off of my shoulder. Not to say that the cards were oppressive, but just to know that you don't have to see some generic end boards with the same end pieces all the time has really been, I have found it a lot of fun. Now, going beyond just the ban list, I would say the environment of the TCG has also been extremely appealing to me. And when I say that, I mean that I really like that the TCG is a best of three format. I have always strongly disliked the best of one format that Master Duel and by extension the OCG does. Um, Now, this part, maybe it's a controversial take, but this is just my opinion, that I've always felt that in Master Duel, because it's a best of one, it limits both deck creativity, and also because of the nature of a best of one, forces you to make a air quotes generic deck. And when I say generic, I mean that your deck essentially needs to have gas and then all the non-engine that you can think of in order to stop your opponent from playing. That, which in a way kind of is an example of even my current deck. I play Blue Eyes, pure Blue Eyes, because I can't afford Prime Eyed yet. But I saw those prices come down, so we're going to be getting there in a few weeks. But because because of like my deck right now, since I play Blue Eyes, right now the build I have, even though it's pure, it's nothing but the Blue Eyes cards that I need, and then outside of that, it's just hand traps, your Fuwas, your Imperms, your Ash, your Drolls, your Veilers, any hand trap that I might need. And while the games are still good, because it's a best of three in the TCG, I've always felt Master Duel is very limited in that sense. Uh, I think one of the best examples that I have is really, I almost want to say Labyrinth in a way. I've been playing Labyrinth for probably 2.5 years in Master Duel, and even though it is anti-meta, um, essentially because of the best of one, I have to almost most of the trap cards that I run are essentially, yes, all trap cards that are going to interrupt in some way, but it's also to remove pieces from my opponent's board that because it's best of one, they probably are less likely to be able to get back if I'm able to get rid of them. So, for example, when Fiendsmith dropped and everybody started running it, I started playing. I went back to Lab because one of the things I can rely on is cards like IDP or Daruma Karma Cannon or once they did drop, I switched to playing the equation cannon build of Lab, and even that, a board wipe is so a non-targeting board wipe is so strong. And with that board wipe, I know that the majority of times there's not much they can do after that. So for example, in the qualifiers, I was in a duel with someone, and I think Equation Cannon was really the only card I had, and it might actually be in this part in the video. I activated Equation Cannon. They had, and I think it was a Ubel Fiends, but they had a full board, and because of the extra deck I play, which is I play for the Equation Cannon build, I do fusions 1 to 6 and ranks 3 to 6. It gives me the greatest area of levels / ranks that I want to be able to target, and especially with Fiendsmith. Fiendsmith is very easy to target with Equation Cannon because it's very easy for me to hit. It's very easy for me to hit 6, even with the conditions that Equation Cannon has, and so I could have gotten a board wipe off that. Also, another thing is because it's Fiendsmith, all the monsters are fiends. So IDP, it has been really strong against Fiendsmith. All I usually need to do is wait for Requiem to go to the grave, let them bring a Fiendsmith out, and then if they bring out Engraver and try to get Requiem back from the grave to do that, IDP, if they do Lacrima Send, even then I can grab the Requiem from the grave and banish Lacrima and Requiem, or I can do Engraver and Lacrima. So being able to take away those resources is important, even if you were doing a best of 3. But because Master Duel is a best of 1, I have to focus on an almost like I said, a generic strategy, which has just never been that appealing to me. Not to say that it hasn't been fun, but I've just wanted more from the game. But that's, again, I've said that's a personal gripe that I've had, but I like the environment of being able to do best of 3 because there's way more strategy that goes into it. So for example, when you lose when you're the person who loses, you get to decide who goes first in the next game. So you can side deck, and you could actually tell your opponent, oh, you're going to go first, and you've probably sided in a bunch of going second cards. Or if you go first, then you know that, well, if they don't draw any hand traps, you have the potential to get a board off, and it's going to be their problem to break that board. But the best of 3 format, especially in my past, there was a time I was playing fighting games heavily, specifically Dragon Ball FighterZ. So I was already very used to a best 2 out of 3 situation. So going to a game where it was only a best of 1 always felt weird. I do like for games. I like the feeling when I feel for a game when 2 people are playing. Always there's going to be different factors, but I feel that most times if the better player wins, that's also something I appreciate. Yes, of course, there can be misplays, mistakes. Whoever makes the least amount of mistakes really is going to be the one who wins. But I do feel in a best of 1, just a lot of that skill ceiling is taken down. And I like being able to be in this environment where I get to try these out. And what I was saying earlier in the video, when I was saying that some other things that I've come to just see a little differently now that I've been playing the TCG is, in a way, I would even say the complaints I see about the game. So one of the biggest complaints that I see in Master Duel is that people complain that everybody just copy and paste the same deck list. And honestly, it's gotten a little bit old to me, hearing that and seeing that so much, because while I do agree in Master Duel, you will see when there's a strong deck, you will see similar decks that will run almost, beat for beat, sometimes the same cards. At the end of the day, I look at it as like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a competitive game, and this is an online game, and it's a best of 1. I don't necessarily see the goal of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! To be creative. At the end of the day, the goal is to win. And I'm not gonna shame or complain about how people are doing what they feel they need to win. I can be annoyed by it, sure, but it's so much more than just copy paste or your YouTube combos. Um, I feel when I see these arguments, I feel that people are sometimes limiting how they're actually viewing the game. I do admit that would it be nice to see more wacky combos and interesting deck lists. Yes, that would be interesting, but this is just not the environment for that. Um, at the end of the day, Yu-Gi-Oh is a game, and you have control of how you want to interact with the game. And if you like doing your wacky quacky combos, you are fine to do that. But you can't complain when you're gonna if you lose to people who are just playing meta, or people who just have something who are just at the end of the day better players. It's it's a very give and take. It's a very give and take thing. But seeing how in the TCG from the conversations that I've had, it's the same thing that you would see in Master Duel. Sometimes you're just not going to draw your any hand traps. Sometimes you're just not going to draw any engine. Sometimes you think you have a goaded hand and your opponent is just able to stop you. It's the way the game works. And at the end of the day, I feel that as players you need to reconcile with that, because just reducing everyone to, oh well, you just copy and pasted your deck and that's the only reason you won. um, Again, this is my opinion. None of us are too special in Yu-Gi-Oh. If you've had an idea for a deck, more often than not someone else has had the exact same idea. It's just in the implication of how you make that deck work. um, so I've enjoyed the TCG because I don't that complaint doesn't seem to be a thing. um, Now, at the same time, if I wanted to argue for those people that everything is copy paste, then I guess maybe you could probably say that to a degree that is true. At my locals that I've gone to, I have definitely seen meta contending decks. I've seen Mitsurugi, Ryzeal, Malice, some of the biggest names of the current format, Alliance Insight, and you know I've also seen Labyrinth. I've seen Kashtira. I've seen Union Fiendsmith. I've seen Tier Fiendsmith. I've seen White Forest. I've seen Blue Eyes. I've seen Heroes. Even even for some of the decks I mentioned, like Blue Eyes, I run a pure Blue Eyes. I dueled someone last week who had Primite Blue Eyes. I know someone who runs pure Blue Eyes, but he doesn't do the modern combos of it. He plays a pure Blue Eyes deck in his own way. And at the end of the day, there is no copy paste situation because there's also the inclusion of the side deck. And I think the side deck is a really cool thing. You already have your standard 40 to 60 card deck, you have your 15 card extra deck, and now you get an extra 15 cards that you can side into your deck or extra deck to change up your strategy. If you want to help you with an upcoming matchup, like for example, um, last week, the last duel I was in, I was going against a hero player, and I won game one. But when we sided, I made sure I put in two-dimensional barriers. Why? Because I'm not going to deal with all those hero fusions. At the same time, there's a player who plays Mitsurugi, and so every time that I duel him, once game one is over, dimensional barrier is getting sided in. And even a few weeks ago when we played, I think we were each other's last game for the night, and we in game two, I basically won because I drew into both of my dimensional barriers, and I was able to swing into him with Bestial Druiswarm like two times before he scooped. Like, and that's the side deck. There's way more strategy into this and the ability to add different cards to your deck, and you don't know what these cards are. There's more strategy in here, and I have to say it's really cool. And I think probably the last thing that I'm going to talk about as why I've like really enjoyed it, and I can say a little bit biased here, is really also just the local shop I go to. I have to say I am biased when I say this, that my introduction to the TCG probably came really strong just because of the local shop I go to. The first day that I went, And I was nervous and excited, and I was telling some folks, I was really telling everyone there, this is my first TCG event. I've never dueled in person before. I've just done a master duel, and there was one guy there who asked me like, "Oh, what are you playing?" I said, "I bought 3 of the structure deck. I net deck something from Team Samurai, and I just decided to come here." That man looked at me, and he was like, "Here, take this. Take a pot of prosperity. Take Albaz and like the fusions for it, so you can do like so you can do a spirit with eyes of blue lock." Never pulled that lock off, and the minute I got some extra cards, I took that out of my deck. I don't like locks, but it was the fact that he just gifted me like so many cards and good cards. And it wasn't just him. Over the weeks, a couple weeks ago, someone gifted me a Triple Tactics Talents. Last week, someone gifted me some extra branded cards because I said I've been interested in probably making a branded deck. I think the first week that I went to locals, I think I went X and 2. So I made top cut, and in one of my packs I pulled backup at Ignister, and there was a player there who wanted to trade it to me, and I want to say he gave me, what did he trade me for? I think he traded me some staples. I think he might have traded me Dark Ruler No More. But like even within my first 2 weeks of going, I got a bunch of different staple cards. I made a couple trades, and I would say that's also like dueling in person, being around people who enjoy this game as much as I do has also been like the greatest thing about this switch into the format. I can definitely say that I think I am here to stay in the TCG. My goal is to do increasingly more challenging things, and like there was a regional that happened not too long ago, and even like with the people who go to my shop, a lot of them were saying you should go, you can maybe get some new cards or really just for fun. And honestly, I do wish I took their advice and went, because when I think about it, a whole day of dueling sounds like fun. Now also I was terrified that I would just get my ass beat, because this was also before I had gotten Molcharmi Fua, and with no Fua and with Called by the One, Droll everywhere, I just wasn't feeling that confident. I don't think that I probably would have done necessarily the best if I had went, but I do think it would have been a good experience. So I do want to go to a regional and maybe work my way up to doing a YCS. Even the small goals at locals to go. I've been X and 2. I've definitely been X and 3. But the goal to go to X and 1 in 1 week, maybe even undefeated. I think there's a lot of stuff here in the TCG that there's a lot here for me that I can't necessarily get from Master Duel, and that's just because Master Duel is a best of 1 and it's online. Like comparatively, Master duels have only felt intense and really at their most fun when I'm like dueling some of my close friends, and like we're on the phone or in Discord, or we're at each other's houses and we're dueling. But when you're going to a location, when you're sitting across from someone, when you're actually trying to beat the person across from you, there's a whole world there that I really just have not been exposed to, and I'm really excited that I'm learning. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. Just a little recap of my last, 6 weeks in the TCG. It's really been a lot of fun. I want to keep doing it. I want to keep getting better. I want to get some of the cards I want, because oh my lord, oh Jesus, we're not going to talk about price either. But let's just say, if one card, I'll probably butcher the same, Stardust Cipher Dragon comes in, I feel at that point my deck will be complete until I buy the Prime cards. Because at the same time, if we do a Master Duel, I'm working on a TCG build for Lab. But Chaos Angel is $35 at the time of release of this video. Arius has gone down to $11 after being at $20 for like the last few weeks. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited that I'm able to share this experience and this passion with other like-minded individuals, and that I'll be able to increase my skills in it. Now, it's not to say that I'm about to drop Master Duel, but I have noticed in the last month-ish, 2 months, I haven't played nearly as much. Even with all life stuff happening, I really spend a lot of my time focusing on TCG, looking at more TCG related content. I especially spent some time on TCG Player trying to get cards because we need those cards. But thank you all for hearing me yap about my favorite card game. Really excited for the journey, and I hope to keep making some videos, some follow-ups, just talking about my trials and tribulations. And hopefully we'll one of these days we'll go to locals and we will go XO. But until then, appreciate you for listening. Drink some water, stay safe, and take care.